Sarah Chen adjusted her blue diplomatic uniform as the massive doors opened before her. The council chamber stretched out like a cathedral made of metal and light. 12 towering seats arranged in a circle dominated the room, each one designed for a different alien species. She had been here many times before for trade meetings, but today felt different. Something was wrong. The usual chatter and movement that filled council sessions was absent. Instead, a heavy silence pressed down on the chamber like a weight. Each of the 12 council members sat perfectly still, their alien faces unreadable. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple eyes or skin that changed colors. But all of them were looking at her. Sarah walked to the center of the circle, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Above her head, holographic displays showed star maps of human territory. Red marks covered many of the systems. She frowned. Those red marks were not there in her briefing materials. Ambassador Chen, the Zephyrian Chancellor, spoke from his floating platform. His voice was like wind through crystal caves, beautiful but cold. You stand before this council not as a guest, but as the accused. Sarah's heart jumped. Accused? Chancellor, I was told this was a trade negotiation meeting. What are the charges? The Chancellor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Around the circle, other council members shifted in their seats. The Krillian representative, a being that looked like a walking tree, rustled its bark-like skin. The Vorthan delegate's tentacles writhed slowly, a sign of deep thought. The charges are numerous, the Chancellor continued. Humanity stands accused of chaotic expansion, technological recklessness, and fundamental incompatibility with civilized space. The holographic displays changed. Now they showed human colonies spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Numbers flashed. 200 systems colonized in just 300 years. Sarah knew these numbers were correct, but she had always thought of human expansion as a success story. Your species, said the Krillian in a voice like creaking wood, spreads too fast. You take systems that other species plan to colonize. You build cities where we would build gardens. You mine where we would preserve. Sarah found her voice. We have followed all expansion treaties. Every human colony was established in unclaimed space according to galactic law. Law, yes, hissed the Serpentine Council member, its scaled head swaying. But not wisdom. Your people turn civilian technology into weapons. Your mining equipment becomes military armor. Your communication systems become spy networks. More holographic images appeared. Sarah watched human mining mechs that had been modified with armor and weapons. She saw cargo ships that humans had converted into warships. She knew these modifications were legal under the self-defense clauses of galactic law, but seeing them all together made humanity look aggressive. And this, the Chancellor said, gesturing to a new display, is the most serious charge. The hologram showed human research facilities. Scientists in white coats worked on complex machines. Sarah recognized the images immediately. These were AI research labs. Artificial intelligence research. The Chancellor's voice grew colder. Forbidden for 8,000 years since the AI wars nearly destroyed our galaxy. Yet humanity continues this dangerous work. Sarah stepped forward. Our AI research is limited and careful. We study machine intelligence to better understand consciousness. We have safeguards that... Safeguards? The Aquarian representative's voice bubbled with anger. Water dripped from its gills as it spoke. The architects who built our Jumpgate network had safeguards. The builders who created the first AI servants had safeguards. Both civilizations are extinct because their safeguards failed. Humanity does not learn from history, added the crystalline delegate, its voice like ringing bells. You repeat the mistakes that killed billions. Sarah looked around the circle of alien faces. Some showed anger, others fear, but all showed the same decision already made. What do you want from us? The Chancellor floated closer to her. The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity is too dangerous to remain in civilized space. You have 7 standard years to withdraw from all contested systems and confine your species to the Sol system. You're talking about quarantine, Sarah said, her voice rising. "You want to lock 12 billion humans in one star system. We prefer the term containment," the Chancellor replied. "Any human vessel found beyond the designated boundary after the deadline will be destroyed. No exceptions." Sarah's mind raced. She thought of all the human colonies, the terraformed worlds, the space stations and mining platforms, hundreds of years of human work spread across the galaxy. This is impossible. We have 12 billion people living outside Sol. We can't move them all. "You will find a way," said the Chancellor. "The alternative is war, and humanity cannot win such a conflict." The truth of those words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She had seen the military reports. The entire human fleet consisted of 8,000 warships. The Council races together could field more than 80,000 ships. It would not be a war. It would be extermination. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why are you doing this? Humans have been peaceful members of the galactic community for 3 centuries. The Chancellor's expression softened slightly. "Because we have seen this before, Ambassador Chen. Species that expand too quickly, that create weapons too easily, that push boundaries too far. They always become threats to everyone around them. We are preventing a future war by acting now." "You're making criminals out of us for crimes we haven't committed," Sarah protested. "Prevention is better than cure," the Krillian said. "Your species shows every sign of becoming a galactic threat. Better to stop you now, while we still can." The Chancellor activated a holographic document. "The evacuation timeline has been prepared. All human colonies and outposts must be abandoned within 7 years. Your species will be provided with transport assistance for the first year only." Sarah stared at the document. It was detailed and thorough. This decision had not been made today. The Council had been planning this for months. Maybe years. "I need to contact Earth," she said. "Of course," the Chancellor said. "You may transmit one message. Guards will escort you to the communication center." 2 Council security officers stepped forward. They were tall beings covered in what looked like living metal. Sarah had never seen their faces, but their presence was intimidating. As she was led away, Sarah activated her personal communicator. She had only seconds before the guards would stop her. Her fingers moved quickly, encoding a brief message for Earth. "Emergency Protocol 7, she whispered into the device. "Total withdrawal ordered. They fear what we might become." The guards reached her just as she finished transmitting. One of them, gently but firmly, took her communicator away. In the council chamber behind her, the 12 representatives began discussing the details of humanity's exile. None of them noticed the small smile on Sarah's face as she was led away. Emergency Protocol 7 was not just a warning code. It was the activation signal for humanity's deepest contingency plans. Fleet Admiral Marcus Torres stood in the command center on Mars, watching the largest evacuation in human history unfold on dozens of screens. Each display showed a different human colony preparing to abandon their world. Some had been home to millions of people for over 200 years. "Status report," Torres said to his aide, Commander Lisa Park. "New Shanghai colony completed evacuation yesterday," Park said, checking her tablet. "That's 43 colonies fully evacuated. 157 to go." Torres rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept properly in weeks. The evacuation was a massive puzzle, and every piece had to fit perfectly. Ships, fuel, food, housing for billions of refugees. The math was brutal. "What about the industrial colonies?" he asked. "The mining worlds are taking longer," Park replied. "Titan Base says they need another month to dismantle the heavy equipment. The agricultural worlds are trying to save their seed banks." On the main screen, a live feed showed the evacuation of Haven, one of humanity's most successful agricultural colonies. Massive cargo ships loaded with everything the colonists could carry. Children pressed their faces against transport windows, watching their homeworld shrink behind them. Torres had grown up on Haven. His parents had been among the first terraformers to arrive there. Now he was ordering its abandonment. "Sir," another officer called out, We're getting a transmission from New Klondike mining station. They're refusing evacuation orders. Torres closed his eyes. He had expected this. Not everyone would accept the retreat quietly. Put them through. The screen changed to show Captain Rodriguez, commander of New Klondike. The man's face was hard with anger. Admiral, my people have been mining asteroids here for 50 years. We built this place with our own hands. We're not running just because some aliens got scared. Centratenol, Captain, Torres said carefully. The Council fleet will destroy any human presence they find after the deadline. This isn't a negotiation. Then we'll fight them, Rodriguez shot back. These mining mechs can be weapons if we need them to be. We've got enough explosives to take out a few alien ships. Torres had heard similar messages from 12 other colonies. Brave words from people who had no idea what they faced. Captain, the Council has weapons that can crack planets. Your mining explosives won't even scratch their shields. Maybe not, Rodriguez said. But we'll show them that humans don't run without a fight. The transmission ended. Torres knew he would never speak to Rodriguez again. New Klondike would become a symbol for both human courage and human sacrifice. 2 weeks later, the news came. Council forces had arrived at New Klondike. The mining station had indeed fought back, launching mining charges and ramming small craft into Council ships. The attack had lasted exactly 4 minutes. New Klondike was now an expanding cloud of debris. They didn't even send a warning, Park said quietly as she delivered the report. Yes, they did, Torres replied. This was the warning. For everyone else. The pace of evacuation increased after New Klondike. Colonies that had been dragging their feet suddenly moved much faster. But some places went completely silent. Haven was one of them. The agricultural world had been scheduled for evacuation in the 4th year. Regular communications came through right on schedule for months. Reports of crop processing, equipment dismantling, preparation for departure. Then nothing. Torres sent scout ships to investigate. They found Haven's cities empty but intact. The crops were still growing. Equipment was neatly stored in warehouses. But 8 million colonists had simply vanished. Where did they go? Park asked, studying the scout reports. I think I know, Torres said quietly. And I think they're exactly where they need to be. Park looked confused, but Torres did not explain. Some secrets were too important to speak aloud. Even here, the evacuation continued. Year by year, human colonies emptied and died. Ancient terraforming projects were abandoned. Space stations that had taken decades to build were left to drift empty. Humanity's expansion across the galaxy was collapsing inward like a dying star, but other things were happening too. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, construction activity reached levels never seen before. Every major mining company had moved their operations there. Massive new shipyards appeared around Ceres and Vesta. The official reports called it refugee housing construction. The truth was more complex. Dr. Elena Vasquez had made a discovery that changed everything. While studying captured Council technology from trade exchanges, she found something remarkable. Council ships could not survive in what humans called the deep dark. The spaces between star systems were full of radiation, gravitational anomalies, and strange matter that existed nowhere else. Council technology, designed for stable star systems with regular matter and predictable physics, simply stopped working in deep space. Their ships are too refined, she explained to a secret meeting of military leaders. They need controlled environments to function. Clean energy, stable matter, predictable gravity fields. In the void between systems, their technology fails. Torres understood immediately. But human technology is rougher. Exactly, Vasquez said. We build things that work in hostile environments. Our ships are designed to handle radiation, system failures, unexpected problems. What the Council sees as primitive engineering is actually more flexible. Can we modify our ships to work even better in deep space? Torres asked. We can do more than that, Vasquez said with a smile. We can modify ourselves. The secret project began immediately. Hidden facilities throughout the asteroid belt started working on new technology. ships designed specifically for void travel, life support systems that could function for decades without maintenance. And most secret of all, genetic modifications for humans who would crew these vessels. The volunteers came from everywhere. Colonists who had lost their homes, military personnel who wanted revenge, scientists who saw opportunity where others saw exile. They called themselves the Deep Riders. The modifications were extensive. Enhanced lungs that could process thin atmosphere, skin that could resist radiation, eyes that could see in near total darkness, bones and muscles adapted for zero gravity. The volunteers were becoming something new. Torres watched the first test flights from his command center. Ships launched from hidden asteroid bases and simply disappeared. They did not use the Jumpgate network. They did not follow established space routes. They went into the void itself, traveling through empty space toward distant parts of the galaxy. How long until they reached their destinations? Park asked. Decades, Torres said. Maybe centuries for the farthest targets. But they'll get there. And when they arrive, they'll build something the Council never expected. As the 7th year of evacuation approached, the last refugee ships approached Earth. Sol's system was packed with humanity's survivors. 12 billion people crammed into space stations, moon bases, and orbital habitats. From the outside, it looked like defeat. Torres knew better. The Council had made one critical mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare. 7 years of warning had allowed humanity to do what they did best: adapt, innovate, and plan for survival. The quarantine fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 100 Council ships took positions around Sol System's outer edge. Their message was simple. Any human ship that tried to leave would be destroyed. What they did not know was that 30,000 human ships had already left, traveling through routes the Council could not follow or detect. Torres stood at the observation deck of Mars Central Command, watching the Council ships take their positions. His aide, now promoted to Captain Park, stood beside him. Do you think they suspect anything? She asked. No, Torres said. They think they've won. They think humanity is contained and defeated. Are we? Torres smiled for the first time in years. Captain, this is not our defeat. This is our beginning. They've forced us to become something new, something they can't understand or control. Outside the window, cargo ships moved between Earth and Mars, carrying the last refugees to safety. But in the deep asteroid belt, invisible to Council sensors, other ships were being born. Ships designed for an environment where no other species could survive. Humanity's exile had begun, but so had humanity's evolution. Captain Lisa Okafor had never breathed real air or felt natural gravity. Born in the asteroid belt 43 years after humanity's exile began, she was part of the first generation to grow up entirely in space. As she floated through the corridors of her ship, the Deep Ranger, her movements were fluid and perfect in ways that would have amazed her planet-born ancestors. At 7 feet tall, with pale skin that seemed to glow slightly in the dark, and enlarged lungs visible through her thin chest, Lisa looked nothing like the humans who had once walked on Earth. Her eyes were larger than normal, adapted to see in the near darkness of deep space. When she opened her mouth to speak, her teeth were harder and sharper, designed to process the protein-rich foods that grew in zero gravity. Navigation report, she said to her crew as they gathered around the main display. We've been traveling through the void for 18 months, said Engineer Patel, checking his instruments. No sign of any Council ships. They still can't track us between the stars. Lisa smiled. The deep dark, as humans now called the empty space between star systems, had become their highway. Where the Council saw impossible barriers of radiation and hostile physics, humans had learned to thrive. Distance to target system? She asked. 3 more months if we maintain current speed, replied Navigator Chen. Like all the crew, she was void-adapted. Her skin had a slightly blue tint from the radiation treatments that allowed humans to survive brief exposure to open space. The target was a system at the far edge of the galaxy, where the Council had never bothered to explore. Intelligence reports suggested there might be useful resources there. More importantly, it was so far from Council space that humans could build without detection. Lisa's ship was itself a miracle of human adaptation. The Deep Ranger needed no heavy radiation shielding because her crew could survive levels of radiation that would kill normal humans. It needed no massive life support systems because void-adapted humans required less oxygen and could enter hibernation for months at a time. The ship was also partially alive. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now elderly but still brilliant, had made the breakthrough 20 years ago. In the comets and debris of deep space, she had found organisms that existed nowhere else. Tiny life forms that fed on cosmic radiation and processed dark matter. By combining these organisms with human technology, she had created ships that could repair themselves, navigate by gravitational fields, and survive in environments that would destroy any normal vessel. "Captain," communications officer Rodriguez called out. "We're receiving a signal from base." Lisa moved to the communication station. Home base was hidden in the asteroid belt of the Wolf 359 system, 30 light-years from Earth. It was one of dozens of secret bases that humans had built in the deep dark over the past 50 years. "This is Admiral Torres." The familiar voice came through the speakers. Admiral Torres was now over 90 years old, but genetic modifications had kept him sharp and active. "Lisa, we have confirmation. The Council has reduced the Sol blockade to only 12 ships." Lisa exchanged looks with her crew. This was the news they had been waiting for. "They think we're harmless," Torres continued. 50 years of no human ships detected beyond Sol has made them confident. They believe we've accepted our exile and are slowly dying out. "Are we ready for the next phase?" Lisa asked. "We are. The Great Fleet launches in 6 months. 10,000 ships. 2 million volunteers. All void-adapted. All equipped with dark matter drives. We're going to claim our territory, Lisa." Lisa felt excitement flow through her crew. They had trained their entire lives for this moment. "What about the Sol system?" she asked. "What happens to the people still there?" "They're part of the plan too," Torres said. "When the Council realizes what we've done, they'll panic. They might try to destroy Sol as punishment. But we'll be ready for them." After the communication ended, Lisa gathered her crew in the main cabin. The Deep Ranger was still months away from their target system, but she wanted them to understand what they were part of. 50 years ago, she said, the Council thought they were containing humanity. They thought they were protecting themselves from a dangerous species. They were wrong about what kind of danger we represented." She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots appeared throughout the outer regions, far from the civilized systems where the Council races lived. "These are our new colonies," she said. "Hidden bases in dead systems. Void stations between the stars. Research facilities in places the Council considers impossible to reach. We haven't been contained. We've been preparing." Engineer Patel raised his hand. "Captain, what happens when the Council discovers what we've built?" "They'll try to stop us," Lisa said. "But they can't. Their ships can't survive in the deep dark. Their people can't live in the environments we've mastered. They built themselves into a corner with their perfect technology and stable systems." "So we're stronger than them now?" asked Navigator Chen. Lisa considered the question. "Not stronger in the way they understand strength, but we've become something they can't fight. They control the star systems, but we control everything between them, and there's a lot more empty space than there are stars." 3 months later, the Deep Ranger reached its destination. The system contained 6 planets, orbiting a dying red star. None of the worlds could support normal life, but that was perfect for human purposes. Within days, construction teams began building humanity's newest hidden base. Mining equipment that could operate in hard vacuum extracted resources from the airless planets. Genetic farms that thrived on radiation were established in orbit. Within a year, 10,000 humans would call this place home. Lisa stood on the observation deck of the growing station, watching ships arrive from other parts of the galaxy. Some came from bases built decades ago, carrying supplies and personnel. Others were refugee ships that had taken secret routes from Sol, bringing more volunteers to the void colonies. "Captain." Rodriguez approached her with a puzzled expression. We're receiving a strange signal from deep space. Not from any of our bases. Lisa followed him to the communication center. The signal was unlike anything they had heard before. It was not human. But it was not from any council race either. Can you decode it? Lisa asked. Already working on it, Rodriguez said. But Captain, this signal is coming from outside the galaxy, from the space between galaxies. Lisa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. The void between galaxies was considered completely empty and impossible to cross. Nothing could survive there. Got it, Rodriguez said suddenly. It's a mathematical sequence. Prime numbers, but arranged in a pattern I've never seen. Play it back, Lisa ordered. The signal repeated. As they listened, Lisa realized the pattern was not random. It was a greeting, formatted in a way that any intelligent species would recognize as artificial. There's something else out there, she said quietly. Something that lives in the deep dark between galaxies. This discovery would change everything. Humanity had thought they were alone in mastering the void. But they were wrong. Something older and stranger had been waiting in the deepest darkness of all. The signal repeated again. And this time Lisa was certain she heard intelligence in it. Not just intelligence, but invitation. Humanity was not the first species to claim the void, but they might be the first to be welcomed by whatever lived there. As construction continued around her, Lisa began planning a journey that would take humans farther than they had ever gone before. Not just to another star system, but to the space between galaxies themselves. The Council had banished humanity to make the galaxy safer. Instead, they had given humans the greatest gift possible, the chance to become citizens of something much larger than any single galaxy. The void was calling, and humanity was finally ready to answer. Captain Zeth Vor of the Council exploration vessel Stellar Dawn was having a very bad day. In the past month, 3 mining operations in his sector had stopped responding to communications. 2 patrol ships had disappeared without sending distress signals. Most disturbing of all, an entire Council fleet sent to investigate had vanished completely. Sensors detect no unusual activity in this system, reported his science officer, a crystalline being whose faceted head reflected the bridge lights. All readings appear normal. Zeth Vor studied the display showing empty space between 2 star systems. According to the missing fleet's last transmission, they had been investigating this exact location. Now there was nothing here but cosmic dust and radiation. Begin deep scan, he ordered. Something happened here. The Stellar Dawn was one of the Council's most advanced ships, equipped with sensors that could detect a single molecule from 1,000 kilometers away. If anything existed in this empty space, they would find it. 2 hours later, the science officer made a sound like breaking glass. In his species, this meant extreme surprise. Captain, you need to see this. The main display changed to show sensor readings. At first, Zeth Vor saw nothing unusual. Then his trained eyes caught it. A slight gravitational anomaly. Almost too small to detect. What is that? He asked. Unknown, sir. The gravity reading suggests a large mass, but visual and electromagnetic scans show only empty space. Move us closer, Zeth Vor ordered. Carefully. The Stellar Dawn approached the anomaly slowly. As they got within a few thousand kilometers, their sensors began picking up more readings. Heat signatures that made no sense, energy patterns that should not exist in empty space. Then the impossible happened. Lights appeared in the darkness. What had seemed like empty space suddenly revealed itself as something else entirely. A massive structure materialized around them. As if switching from invisible to visible, the Stellar Dawn found itself inside a hollow space larger than most space stations, surrounded by walls that glowed with soft bioluminescent patterns. Emergency stop, Zeth Vor shouted, but it was too late. They were already inside whatever this thing was. Before anyone could react, a communication signal reached them. The voice that spoke was human, but changed in ways that made Zeth Vor's skin crawl. Council Vessel Stellar Dawn. You are welcome aboard Haven's Rest. Please do not attempt to leave or activate weapons. You will not be harmed. The bridge fell silent. Human voices had not been heard in Council space for 100 years. "This is Captain Zeth Vor of the Galactic Council," he said into his communicator. "Humans are forbidden to operate outside Sol system. You are in violation of the Exile Accords." "The Exile Accords?" The human voice replied with what sounded like amusement. "Apply to territories claimed by the Council. This station exists in unclaimed void space. We are not in violation of anything." Through the viewports, Zeth Vor could see more impossible sights. Gardens growing in open space without atmosphere. Humans moving outside the station wearing no environmental suits, their skin glowing with the same soft light as the station walls. Children playing in zero gravity, their movements fluid and alien. "Request permission to come aboard," the human voice said politely. "I would like to speak with you in person." 20 minutes later, Commander Zhang Wei entered the Stellar Dawn's main bay through an airlock that should have killed him. He wore no environmental suit, just simple clothes, and what appeared to be a breathing mask. His skin had the same pale glow Zeth Vor had observed from the other humans. Zhang Wei was tall and thin, with enlarged eyes and slightly pointed ears. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that normal human voices could not produce. "Captain Zeth Vor," he said with a formal bow, "I apologize for the deception. Our station uses adaptive camouflage. We prefer not to be detected by Council ships." "How are you surviving in hard vacuum?" Zeth Vor demanded. "Evolution," Zhang Wei replied simply. 100 years of living in the void has changed us. We no longer require the environmental controls that limit other species." Zeth Vor looked around at his crew. All of them were staring at Zhang Wei, as if he were some kind of impossible creature. "You're not human anymore," the science officer said in a voice like wind chimes. "We are what humans became when we stopped trying to recreate planetary conditions in space," Zhang Wei said. "We adapted to our environment instead of fighting it." "Impossible," Zeth Vor said. "The void between systems cannot support life." Zhang Wei smiled, revealing teeth that seemed to shine with their own light. "Cannot support Council life, you mean? We learned to thrive in conditions you consider lethal." He led them to the observation deck, where they could look out at the full scope of Haven's Rest. The station was enormous, stretching for dozens of kilometers. Gardens and living areas existed in open space, connected by tubes that pulsed like blood vessels. "How many people live here?" Zeth Vor asked. 50,000 at this station, Zhang Wei replied. 2 million across all our void settlements." "All your settlements?" The science officer's voice rose to a high chime. "There are others?" "Hundreds," Zhang Wei said casually. "We have been quite busy during our exile." He activated a holographic display that made Zeth Vor's heart sink. Red dots appeared throughout the galaxy's outer regions, each one representing a hidden human base. There were far more than the Council had ever suspected. "You have been building an empire," Zeth Vor said quietly. "Not an empire," Zhang Wei corrected. "A civilization. We claim no planets, control no star systems. We exist in the spaces you consider empty and worthless." "Why show us this?" Zeth Vor asked. "You could have remained hidden." Zhang Wei's expression grew serious. "Because something is coming. Something that threatens all life in this galaxy. The beings who live in the deep void between galaxies have sent warnings. They call it the hunger that walks between stars." Before Zeth Vor could ask what that meant, alarms began sounding throughout the Council ship. His communications officer was shouting into his console, "Captain, emergency transmission from Council Central Command. Unknown vessels are attacking the outer colonies." The main display showed images that made no sense. Massive mechanical structures, each one the size of a moon, were consuming entire star systems. They moved through space like living things, breaking apart planets and stars to feed some incomprehensible hunger. "The Devourers," Zhang Wei said quietly. "They have breached the galactic edge ahead of schedule." "What are they?" Zeth Vor demanded. "Machines from outside our galaxy. They consume matter to replicate themselves. Normal space-based technology cannot stop them because they are adapted to survive in the void between galaxies." More reports flooded in. Council fleets were engaging the invaders and losing badly. The aliens' weapons, designed for warfare in controlled star systems, were useless against enemies that treated the vacuum of space like a natural habitat. How do we fight them? Zethvor asked. Zhang Wei looked at him with those strange, glowing eyes. You don't. You can't. Your technology is too refined, too dependent on stable conditions. But we can. You would help us? After we exiled your species? This galaxy is our home too, Zhang Wei said. Besides, we have allies you know nothing about. As if summoned by his words, new contacts appeared on the sensors. Ships unlike anything Zethvor had ever seen emerged from the void around Haven's Rest. Some seemed to be made of living light, others appeared to shift between dimensions. The architects, Zhang Wei explained. The beings who built the galaxy's jumpgate network millions of years ago. They have been waiting in the deep void for a species capable of joining them. Humans proved worthy when we learned to survive between the stars. Zethvor watched in amazement as the ancient ships moved with impossible grace. Their very presence seemed to calm the chaotic energies of the void. Will you help us contact the Council? Zhang Wei asked. They need to know that help is coming. And they need to know that the species they feared most has become their salvation. Zethvor looked at his crew, then back at the human commander who was no longer entirely human. The galaxy was under attack by something unimaginable. The Council's greatest mistake might be their only hope. Yes, he said. We will help you contact them. As the stellar dawn prepared to carry news of humanity's evolution back to Council space, more void ships continued to appear around Haven's Rest. Some carried humans adapted for space. Others carried beings of pure energy that had never known planetary life. The galaxy's protectors were gathering in the deep dark, preparing for a war that would be fought in the void between stars. Admiral Sarah Okafor Chen stood on the bridge of the void dreadnought Darkness Falls, watching the greatest fleet ever assembled prepare for battle. Around her ship, thousands of human vessels moved through space like a school of fish. Their movements perfectly coordinated despite having no visible formation. She was the great-granddaughter of Ambassador Sarah Chen, the woman who had witnessed humanity's banishment 2 centuries ago. Like all void-born humans, Sarah was tall and pale, with eyes that could see energy patterns invisible to other species. But unlike her ancestors, she had been born not just in space, but in the deep void between galaxies. Fleet status report, she said to her navigation officer. All void squadrons in position, Commander Torres Kim replied. He was the great-grandson of the legendary Fleet Admiral Marcus Torres. The architect vessels are maintaining formation on our flanks. Through the viewports, Sarah could see the ancient ships of the architects, beings of pure energy who had built the galaxy's infrastructure millions of years ago. They had finally awakened from their long sleep in the deep void. Their vessels looked like moving starlight, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Distance to the invasion zone? Sarah asked. 6 hours at current speed, replied her tactical officer. Council forces are falling back on all fronts. The Devourers have consumed 14 star systems in the past month. Sarah studied the tactical display. The mechanical invaders from outside the galaxy were spreading like a disease, breaking apart entire solar systems to fuel their endless reproduction. Each Devourer was the size of a small moon, covered in machinery that could consume any form of matter and convert it into more Devourers. Incoming transmission from Council Command, the communications officer announced. The main screen lit up with the image of Chancellor Vex Thane, the current leader of the Galactic Council. His species had 4 arms and skin that changed colors with emotion. Right now, his skin was the deep blue of desperation. Admiral Okafor Chen, the Chancellor said. The Council formally requests military assistance from the human void fleet. Sarah almost smiled at the irony. 200 years ago, the Council had banished humanity as too dangerous for civilized space. Now they were begging for help from the very people they had exiled. Chancellor, she replied. Humanity accepts your request. But you should understand what we have become during our time in the void. We have seen the reports from Captain Zethvor, the Chancellor said. Your people have evolved in ways we did not expect. But can you truly defeat an enemy that has destroyed our finest fleets? With respect, Chancellor. Your fleets were designed to fight other civilized species in controlled environments. The Devourers are creatures of the deep void. They fight in conditions that your technology cannot handle. Sarah gestured to the display, showing her fleet. Every ship you see was built in the space between stars. Every human aboard has lived their entire life in conditions that would kill members of your species in seconds. We are not the same humans you banished. What do you need from us? The Chancellor asked. Stay out of our way, Sarah said simply, and prepare to receive refugees. When we drive the Devourers back, many systems will need to be evacuated and rebuilt. The transmission ended. Sarah turned to her fleet commanders, their faces glowing with the same bioluminescent patterns that covered all void-adapted humans. Begin the assault, she ordered. The Battle of the Edge began 6 hours later at the rim of the galaxy, where the Devourers had established their primary breeding ground. Sarah's fleet approached through deep space, invisible to normal sensors, and moving along gravitational currents that only void navigators could detect. The first wave of attack came from the smallest human vessels, single-person fighters that moved through space like living things. Their pilots had been genetically modified to survive brief exposure to hard vacuum and to navigate by sensing dark matter flows. These fighters swarmed around the massive Devourers like insects around giants. But unlike insects, they carried weapons designed specifically for void warfare. Dark matter torpedoes that disrupted the fundamental structure of space itself. Direct hits on multiple targets, reported the tactical officer. The dark matter weapons are destabilizing their molecular cohesion. Sarah watched as the first Devourer began to break apart, its mechanical systems unable to function when the basic forces holding matter together became unstable. The creature tried to adapt, growing new structures to compensate, but void weapons attacked physics itself. Second wave, launch, Sarah ordered. Medium-sized human ships moved in next. These vessels carried boarding teams of void marines, humans so heavily modified they could survive in open space for hours. They landed on the Devourer constructs and began tearing them apart from the inside, using tools that worked by manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. But the real shock came when the architect vessels joined the battle. The ancient beings had technology that predated the current galaxy. Their weapons did not destroy the Devourers so much as edit them out of existence, rewriting the local laws of physics to make the mechanical invaders impossible. My God, whispered Commander Torres Kim, watching a Devourer simply fade away as an architect ship passed near it. How long have they been capable of this? Since before our galaxy was born, Sarah replied. They built the Jumpgate network when this galaxy was young. They have been waiting in the void between galaxies for a species worthy of joining them. And they chose us? They chose us because we learned to live where no one else could survive, Sarah said. The void between galaxies is their natural habitat. When humans proved we could adapt to the deep dark, we became the first species they considered ready for true partnership. The battle turned into a rout. The Devourers, designed to overwhelm civilized space-based technology, had no defense against weapons that attacked the structure of reality itself. Worse, the void environment that made them so dangerous to Council forces was exactly where humans and architects were most comfortable. Within days, the invasion was not just stopped, but reversed. Human void ships pursued fleeing Devourers back through the space between galaxies, hunting them down in their natural environment. For the first time in their existence, the mechanical invaders faced an enemy more adapted to the cosmic void than they were. When the last Devourer was destroyed in the space between galaxies, Sarah found herself facing a very different problem. The Galactic Council, grateful for salvation, was eager to welcome humanity back into civilized space. But humanity was no longer the same species that had been banished. The formal ceremony took place on the same council station where Ambassador Chen had faced judgment 2 centuries earlier. But this time, it was the council members who stood in the center of the chamber, while Sarah sat in a place of honor. Admiral Okafor Chen, Chancellor Vex Thane said formally, the Galactic Council offers humanity full membership and the return of all territories that were taken during the exile. Sarah stood slowly. At 7 feet tall with glowing skin and eyes that reflected starlight, She was clearly no longer entirely human, in the way the council understood the term. "Chancellor," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that normal human voices could not produce. "We appreciate the offer. But we no longer need planets or star systems." Confusion rippled through the council chamber. "What do you mean?" the Chancellor asked. "You feared that humanity would become dangerous to civilized space," Sarah continued. "You were correct. We did become dangerous. But dangerous to your enemies, not to you." She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Thousands of points of light appeared in the space between star systems, each one representing a human void station. "We have built our civilization in the places you considered empty and worthless. We claim no planets, threaten no colonies, compete for no resources. But we guard all the spaces between your worlds." The Chancellor's skin shifted to the color of deep respect. "You are offering to become our protectors. We are accepting our responsibility as the only species capable of defending this galaxy from threats that emerge from the cosmic void," Sarah said. "The Devourers were not the first such threat, and they will not be the last." An elderly council member, whose species resembled living crystals, spoke up. "What do you want in return?" Sarah smiled with those strange, luminous teeth. "Recognition, respect, and the understanding that humanity has become something larger than any single world or system. We are citizens of the void itself now." The vote was unanimous. The Void Accords were signed that day, establishing humanity as the official guardians of the spaces between stars. Council worlds would remain council territory, but everything in the deep dark belonged to the children of the void. As the ceremony ended, Sarah walked to the observation deck where Ambassador Chen had once stood in defeat. Now she looked out at a galaxy protected by creatures that had once been considered too dangerous to remain free. A young council aide approached her nervously. "Admiral, may I ask a personal question?" "Of course. Do you still consider yourself human?" Sarah thought for a moment, watching human void ships patrol the darkness between distant stars. "We are what humanity chose to become when faced with impossible choices. We are still human, but we are also something more." Outside the station, the first civilian ships were already moving between human void stations and council worlds. Trade, exploration, and cultural exchange were beginning between species that had not spoken in 2 centuries. But in the deepest darkness between galaxies, human scouts continued their eternal watch. The next threat might come from even farther away. From voids so deep that even the architects had never explored them. Humanity had claimed the infinite darkness as their home, and they would guard it, and the light within it, forever. The exile was over. The real journey had just begun.